Welcome into Wrestling, Barstool's professional wrestling podcast, featuring me, Brandon Walker, a fan who gets to talk to people because Barstool has a lot of money, not because I earned it. So this is very, very fun because 2021 saw an influx of incredible talent to all elite wrestling. You're talking about the Bryan Danielsons of the world, the CM Punks of the world, the Andrade El Idolos of the world, but none bigger than this guy we get to talk to today. Major debut back in the summer on Dynamite. Malakai Black. There are a lot of ways to debut in a company. You debuted when they took the arena dark, and when it came back up, you were standing there. Mm-hmm. What were those seconds like standing in the dark? Is that nerve-wracking at all?
Yes, because at this point you also got to realize I was benched for 8-9 months with a previous company, and we were making a wave. And then obviously that got cut short. The rest is history. We don't need to dive into that at all. And then this story came along, and I was excited because also I've been sitting on this idea for months, right? And obviously the whole idea changed because of the different outcome. So I presented it to Tony. And now, mind you, I only had 2 days to present this to him because legally I wasn't allowed to communicate with Tony other than my other contract being expired. Sure, between agents there was some communication, but not directly. And I presented the idea. Tony got super excited about it, and everything tied in, even the building tied in, because apparently that building is very old and has the. They actually have lighting issues. So with what I did on social media and that, it just blended in perfectly. So when I sat there the entire day in a hotel, no one knew that I was there. It was like 3 people that knew. So it was exciting, nerve-wracking, and then the moment was there. And I remember going to myself, do I still know how to throw that heel kick? It's like, do I still know how to do that? And obviously, I still did, but those seconds in the dark, you really, really feel your heart just pounding in your throat because all the adrenaline. Plus, I hadn't seen the arena, so I literally walk out in the dark in a place that I have never been before. I didn't know about the ramp. I didn't know. I'm like, where do I go?
So did you do the steps or did you roll under the bottom rope?
So I hopped off the ramp and I skedazzled to the side of the ring and then rolled in. But it was one of those. I rolled in and I thought quickly, just make sure that everything, that my tie wasn't halfway.
Lights weren't off very long.
No. So it was a lot of quick movement. But to answer your question, it was nerve-wracking, but in the best of ways because man, did I feel alive.
I've started to notice in your character development in AEW, the eye pain has started to spread around your right eye. It's getting a little bit more dense. It's getting a little bit more coverage. Is that an ailment you're dealing with?
Yes.
Is everything okay?
Well, it's an undisclosed disease that I can't really talk about much because I don't want to be put in quarantine yet. So.
Yeah, we just came out of quarantine too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's part of a greater thing.
So there's certain things, and I want you to be very impressed with my research, and if it's wrong, let's just pretend I never said it, okay?
Sure.
Are you ready?
Cut everything. Let's go.
The name of your entrance music, and if I say it wrong, I say it wrong.
Go for it, yeah.
The name of your entrance music is Ogentroost?
Ogentroost.
Oh, well, I can't. I'm
but
not
it's a Dutch pronunciation.
Ogentroost, the Dutch word for eye bright.
Yes.
Which is a plant used to remedy eye problems.
Correct. Very well.
Eye problems seem to be a big thing with your character in AEW or your character in general. You are meticulous about the details of your character all the way down to the name of your...
Yes.
When do you think of this stuff?
Sitting home for 8 months. But no, the thing is and I had this...
Before you get started, are you impressed with my research?
I'm very impressed. You're the first one to get that, There's one guy in particular who went so deep and he made this YouTube video, and I think I've mentioned him in every interview because I was so impressed, but he dove into the Aleister Black character and he almost got everything right, and I'm going, Jesus. But it's just cool to see that now that has become a thing for people to really research what I'm doing. It means that it catches on. So I like that a lot.
No, the detail though.
Sure.
I've interviewed wrestlers who sometimes they don't know what they're doing until they get out in the ring, and that works for them.
Sure.
You are very carefully crafting every single thing about every part of your character.
Yes,
is that right?
That's completely
Have you always
correct.
been like that?
So I always had a lot of creative ideas, but I never really had a good way of outing them, or I was afraid of outing them because I was afraid, like, maybe I was a little bit ahead of what wrestling was at the time, or what wrestling could be. But for me, wrestling has always been more than just one guy versus one guy competing. And that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing, but just for me personally, as what I do, how I experience wrestling, it had to be bigger. And then when I first kind of got comfortable with this Tommy End character, I started I started working for a company called ICW, and he was like, the promoter was like, no, do whatever you want. I love it. And he was one of the first people to kind of let me do what I wanted to do, and that's where all the vignettes kind of came from, because I was doing those kind of promo things. I was doing them 10, 12, maybe 13 years ago. Right. Because that's the stuff that I liked. We made these little kind of like horror movies turned into promos, and then obviously it grew, and then I did what I did in WWE, which was a collaboration between me and Hunter for the most part. And then like this was the first time where they were supposed to let me do me completely. Yeah. And then I got to AEW, and I was like, well, Tony, this is what I want to do. And he let me do it completely, and I filled in all the blanks, and there's like still so much stuff. I've written books about this personality, this character.
So you have volumes of stuff you haven't gotten to yet.
Yes.
So, you mentioned the collaboration with Hunter, but is this, and you mentioned the first guy in ICW, he said, do whatever you want.
Yes.
Is Tony a do whatever you want guy?
Tony
or
is
tell me whatever you want? And
yes. Tony is a do whatever you want, but run it by me, and maybe I've got some ideas. And he does have good ideas. Yeah. Tony and me have sat down on numerous occasions and kind of like, thought about some ideas, or like I'll tell him something, and then he's like, hey, maybe we should do this, because it's always good to get perspective on the outside from someone else, because sometimes you have an idea that in your head is very streamlined, and then someone else kind of brings in an element, you go, oh, that works way better. And like that's the kind of relationship that I have with Tony.
When you were wrestling Cody, and the matches were always fantastic and great action, did the reactions you guys might have received from the crowd that ever throw you off at all?
No, because it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. That was all in my head. Structured that way, because I understood where I came from, and I understood how the audience viewed me, right? And he did too, and I think for most part we played to our advantage with certain things, and sometimes you have to change your tactic, but for the most part it played out exactly like I wanted it to play out.
You mentioned a phrase there I want to dig into a little bit. Sure. You mentioned knowing exactly how the audience viewed you. Mm-hmm. How do you believe the audience views you?
I think when I first came through the curtain, or out of the darkness, basically, I think everybody wanted to see me succeed. Mm-hmm. And that's why it was so hard for the audience to dislike me, because they all knew where I came from, because it's a very smart audience. Sure. The AEW crowd is an incredibly smart crowd in terms of like what's going on in the landscape of professional wrestling. So everybody was like rooting for me, basically, because of the way everything else went. So it was very difficult for them to dislike me. So then it became a thing for me to just like go with it and embrace it and call them, the House of Black, because now I felt like, well, I'll make you a part of it, and I'll make you feel like a part of it. And like, I think I always do a good scaling of like having a 50-50 balance between a dislike and a like ratio. I've always been that's why I was dubbed the anti-hero at one point, because I've always thread that middle line of being a tweener, and I can fill in whatever position I need to.
So what is your deal with eyes? Eyes are the window to the soul, Malakai. They're the window to the soul. They're how we present. What's your deal with eyes?
My deal with eyes is that I'm a big fan of asymmetrical things. And I think eyes are such a. Oh, there we go. I think that for the most part, the most symmetrical thing we can see about a person is because we look people in the eyes all the time, right? So the second something changes about the eyes is the second something. It tells me something. Right. If even back when I was in martial arts. We were always taught never to look your opponent directly in the eyes, because it can be distracting. Plus, you can't see what the entire body is. So you're focusing on the sternum, right? You're focusing on a symmetrical point in the body where I can see your legs and your arms, and I can even see the way your head moves. But if I look you in the eyes, like I can get lost in what other parts do. So for me, symmetry has always been very important, but then it becomes interesting for me when it's asymmetrical, but the fulfillment of the role from the eyes does not change. And sometimes there's something very cool about not having sight, but giving you different sight.
think about my eyes?
I think they're very blue. I think they go with your hair.
They really do. They really do.
Blonde hair, blue eyes. That's just the.
I know. Well, so the dark storyteller thing that you do and you've done in the past, where you take us through stories and everything. Sometimes it kind of weirds me out. You scare me a little bit.
Good. Uncomfortability.
You're satisfied with that?
I'm 100%.
I'm a 42-year-old man. I shouldn't be getting scared watching wrestling.
I mean, that's up to you.
You're right.
That's up to the viewer, I guess.
But do you enjoy getting into that mode of uncomfortability?
Yeah, because anything in professional wrestling, right, and purely from the side of professional wrestling, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Sure.
I've always enjoyed mythology. I've always enjoyed religion and religious mythology, storytelling. I've always been a big fan of it. So for me, telling uncomfortable stories or telling stories that might make people uncomfortable or feel a certain way, because that's also what we do in the ring. We tell a story that you look at Daniel, like you look at Bryan Danielson and he slaps on a hold and he torques his soul, and people get uncomfortable with it.
Right.
Like, uncomfortability is what we do. We want people to feel a certain way. We want an emotional response. So even in my storytelling outside in my promos, I want you to feel a certain way.
What's going on with you?
Well, they always say that Saturn is the month of December and January is a month of Saturn, Capricorn, and
Saturn's a planet.
Yes, but Saturn was also a god in ancient times.
He was.
And Saturn's teaching is that of complete suffering, and you will be taught to suffer over and over if you haven't learned your lesson. So there we go. That's about as much as I'll give you about that one.
I drove a Saturn once.
Well, how was it?
Saturn was not great.
Did you like Saturn the wrestler?
I was very poor, very poor at the time. Yeah, a good car though, good solid car.
Like the wrestler? Because I love the wrestler Saturn.
Oh, Perry Saturn. God, he was great. Well, I didn't like the moppy thing. It was good for a while, but he was a badass.
Yes, he
was. Probably still is. Can I just make an observation?
You can make an observation.
Thank you very much. A lot of wrestlers wrestle to win titles. A lot of wrestlers wrestle to win fans, to win money, to win fame, to win accolades. You seem to wrestle just for the pure enjoyment of the character you get to build. Is this?
It's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is, like, as a wrestler, I feel you should always want the title.
Sure.
And I do too, but I want to go for the or a title when I feel that I'm positioned in a way that the audience riles completely with it or completely against it when it becomes interesting. Making me go for a title for the sake of me going for a title doesn't mean anything for me. I want it to be built in a way that the audience goes, it's ready, or no, anyone but him. You know what I mean?
Is there an element of you just appearing on the ramp no matter what the stakes are, and it's like, oh my God, that's Malakai Black, and it doesn't matter if you got a title or not, like that. That kind of that feeling in an audience,
absolutely.
like the belt doesn't matter.
I have to, yes, but again, like it all comes down to like feeling it out, and I think that the way that if the coming months play out the way that I want them to play out, or they should play out, I feel that becomes an even more powerful tool. Because of the positioning that I hopefully can put myself in.
Last question.
Yeah.
Was AEW the right move for Malakai Black?
100%.
Why?
100. Because it's the one place that I can tie in all the years in the independents as Tommy End, and then the years in WWE as Aleister, and taking all the good things that I've done there and just molding it into this one character in Malakai. Because a lot of this stuff I did before even Aleister, because Aleister Black was supposed to be a heel character. It was supposed to be a bad guy, but then we flipped the script. So I learned a lot from that. And I learned a lot from obviously my previous engagement on the independents and other companies. And it allowed me to create this personality, this part of me that I feel comfortable showing to the world. And AEW for me is that platform because it thrives there.
Fascinating characters. I mean, fascinating guy to talk to, fascinating wrestler, fascinating story so far in AEW. And I'm sure 2022 will continue a remarkable character arc. We're out of time, so I gotta end the show. But this was awesome, and I thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
All right, so that is Malakai Black. He's got something up his sleeve, and I don't know what it is, and it kind of scares me a little bit. This is wrestling.